March 11th, a U.S. military base in Kuwait that had operated without a single direct strike for over 2 decades was hit, not by a stray rocket, not by a poorly coordinated barrage, by a sequenced, multi-platform assault that left fuel tanks destroyed, a command building gutted, helicopter infrastructure in ruins, and black smoke. Rising high enough to be seen from well outside the base perimeter, reports described personnel evacuating in a hurry. The fire was still burning when the footage started circulating. This was Camp Beering, and what happened there tells you something important about where this war actually stands. Let's start with the strike itself, because the mechanics matter. This was not a single weapon fired at a single target. The ERG ran a layered operation. Drones went in first. Their job was to probe and pressure air defenses, force response systems to engage, create noise. Cruise missiles followed, targeting fixed infrastructure. Then came the ballistic assets, hitting the hardened targets, the helicopter maintenance facilities, the fuel depots, the command structure. Each layer was designed to do a specific job. The result, according to the ERG, was the destruction of 11 high-value components of the base in a single operation. Camp Beering has existed since 2003. It handles helicopter operations, fuel logistics, equipment maintenance, and supply chain support for American forces across the Gulf. It was built for endurance, not for absorbing this kind of coordinated precision assault. Now, the weapon that defined this operation, the Khorramshahr-4 designation Kabar, is not a weapon most people had heard of before this conflict started pulling it into the headlines. Iran unveiled it in May 2023. On paper, the numbers are significant. A medium-range ballistic missile, liquid-fueled, with a range of roughly 2,000 kilometers and a warhead payload of 1,500 kilograms. The ERG has publicly called it a 2-ton warhead, that is the single heaviest conventional payload in Iran's entire arsenal. But the raw weight is not the most important characteristic. What makes the Khorramshahr-4 strategically relevant is what happens during the final phase of flight. It carries a separable, maneuverable re-entry vehicle, meaning the warhead can adjust its trajectory on the way down. It can change course during terminal descent too. Defeat interceptor systems like Patriot PAC-3 and THAAD, combined with a guidance package that blends inertial navigation with satellite correction, the missile can be directed at specific point targets: a fuel depot, a runway junction, a command building, not just a general grid square. Iran has also reportedly reduced the fueling preparation time for this system compared to earlier liquid fuel designs. That detail matters more than it sounds. Liquid-fueled missiles are traditionally most vulnerable during the fueling window. They sit exposed on the pad. A shorter fueling cycle shrinks that window and complicates any preemptive strike calculation. The engineering lineage traces back to a North Korean design, the Hwasong-10, but Iranian engineers have rebuilt its substantially reinforced structure, new tank configurations, upgraded electronics. The original blueprint has been transformed into something purpose-built for Iranian operational requirements. Confirmed reports from a French television correspondent inside Iran placed the Khorramshahr-4 at additional strike locations during the 22nd wave of what the ERG has named Operation True Promise 4. In Bahrain, it reportedly struck the fuel terminal supporting the U.S. Fifth Fleet. A massive fire broke out in Manama. In the way, a U.S. installation was hit. In Tel Aviv, the weapon reportedly caused significant damage to the Israeli Defense Ministry complex. All three appear to have reached their intended targets. Then the ERG said something that reframes the entire picture of this conflict. After 31 waves of strikes, after more than 500 ballistic missiles and nearly 2,000 drones, a senior ERG official stated publicly that the weapons used so far have been predominantly from 2012 through 2014 production. Years. The modern arsenal, the newer systems, the upgraded variants has been held back. 31 waves in, and Iran is describing this as the opening phase. That is not the posture of a force burning through its inventory and running low on options. That is deliberate rationing. It is the signature of a military command that believes this conflict will be measured in weeks, not days, and is managing its capabilities accordingly. Now the succession, because it is inseparable from the military picture. On March 8th, just after midnight Tehran time, Iran's Assembly of Experts, the 88-member clerical body, announced Mojtaba Hosseini Khamenei as the country's third supreme leader. He is 56 years old. He is the second son of the man, the United States. And Israel killed on February 28th. The circumstances of the succession were not clean. Wartime conditions disrupted normal procedures. Reports indicated that an in-person assembly was difficult under active bombardment, with an auxiliary building in Qom reportedly struck. The appointment of Mojtaba carries real internal tensions. He holds the rank of Hojjatul Islam, a mid-level clerical title, not an ayatollah. His father was also not an ayatollah when he assumed power in 1989, and the legal framework was adjusted to accommodate him at the time. But appointing a son creates something the Islamic Republic was explicitly founded to reject: dynastic succession, the entire ideological architecture of the 1979 revolution was built on the overthrow of monarchical hereditary rule. His father had reportedly opposed the idea. The contradiction is not a small one. Mojtaba himself has operated almost entirely in shadow. No public speeches, no sermons, no political addresses on record. Most Iranians have never heard his voice. He was sanctioned by the U.S. Treasury in 2019 for representing the supreme leader in an unofficial capacity, wielding influence without any formal elected or appointed position. WikiLeaks cables once described him as the power behind the robes. He is believed to have orchestrated the political rise of Mahmoud Ahmadinejad in 2005 and the disputed re-election in 2009 that triggered mass protests during which crowds chanted his name in condemnation. His wife and one of their children were killed in the February 28 strike that killed his father. The Irg's response to the succession was not simply military, it was ceremonial. State media published an image of a ballistic missile with handwriting on the casing, Labbaik Mojtaba. The word Labbaik is not a slogan, it is a consecrated Shia oath, the declaration of total allegiance. The Irg turned a warhead into a ritual act of loyalty. The 30th wave of strikes was codenamed Ali Waliullah, a direct theological reference to the divine appointment of Ali as Muhammad's rightful successor. The 31st wave was codenamed Labbaik Ya Khamenei. The missile launches and the leadership transition were synchronized. That was not coincidence, that was choreography. The external reaction came immediately. Israeli Defense Minister Katz had stated days earlier that any successor to Ali Khamenei would be treated as a legitimate target. Israel's foreign ministry posted a photograph of Mojtaba alongside his father, both holding weapons, with the caption, "Like father, like son." Trump told ABC News that the new supreme leader would need us approval or would not last long, calling him a lightweight. Senator Lindsey Graham stated his fate would mirror his father's. Iran responded through multiple channels. Foreign Minister Aragki said no interference would be permitted. Parliament Speaker Galibaf referenced in direct language what he called Epstein's gang. Then the diplomatic geometry shifted. China's foreign ministry declared on March 9 that Iran's leadership process was constitutional and internal, and that any targeting of the new leader was unacceptable. Wang Yi communicated to Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov that assassinating a head of state during active negotiations violated every established framework. Putin pledged support to Mojtaba Khamenei directly. The lines are drawing themselves. Beijing and Moscow are not yet active wartime partners for Iran, but they have publicly opposed the strikes and opposed any assassination of Iran's new leader. Washington and Tel Aviv have openly threatened him. The diplomatic and military dimensions of this conflict are now pulling in the same direction. Meanwhile, Lebanon has re-entered the picture. Hezbollah resumed attacks on Israel on March 2nd, citing the killing of Ali Khamenei as justification. Israel responded with heavy strikes across Beirut's southern suburbs, southern Lebanon, and the Bekaa Valley. An Israeli strike reportedly killed the head of Hezbollah's intelligence headquarters. Lebanese authorities report a sharply rising death toll. Nearly 700,000 people have been displaced since fighting resumed, according to Reuters. 2 Israeli soldiers were killed in southern Lebanon. Human Rights Watch has documented what it describes as evidence of white phosphorus use over residential areas in the town of Yomer. This is no longer a contained exchange on a defined front. It is expanding, and through all of it, Iran is still telling its own public that the serious weapons haven't come out yet. No ceasefire framework exists. No back channel has surfaced publicly. No off-ramp has been confirmed by either side. Both Washington and Tehran have made one thing clear: neither is finished. Every day that clarity is absent, the next wave gets closer.